Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we uncover what it really takes to lead change, create value, and build what's next. I'm JL Heather, and normally Preston is here with me, but he wasn't able to make it today. Together, we lead Centered, a firm that helps organizations navigate complexity, spark creativity, and unlock the full potential of their teams through innovation coaching and strategy. Today's guest is the voice of reason in an industry drunk on its own potential. We're joined by Lee Russel, AI strategist, best-selling author, and founder of Minimal Viable Launch, which may be one of the better book titles I've heard in a while. Lee isn't here to sell hype, however. He's here to deliver some reality. With over a decade of experience as a UX designer, product manager, and engineer, he's built products used by millions, including an AI system that protects children online. Through Minimal Viable Launch, Lee helps entrepreneurs and business leaders transform AI ideas into revenue generating products without wasting time or money on what he calls the overbuilding trap. His methodology bridges the gap between technical depth and business acumen, helping companies use AI for measurable ROI, not marketing spin. In an era defined by inflated expectations and half baked automation, Lee's mission is simple: make AI practical, profitable, and maybe best yet, human again. Lee, I think this is going to be a great conversation. I know AI gets so much attention. I'm hoping we can put a little bit of a better spin on it, maybe something people haven't heard before. So, welcome to the show.
I can't wait to dive into it, JL. I think this is going to be great. We were talking just before the show about our love for design sprints and innovation. And
Yeah,
I think you'll see where a lot of my kind of human-centered technology views come from.
perfect. Well, I know you've said, and we kind of talked about this before we started, that AI is kind of entering this disillusionment cycle, which I find fascinating. And I think I agree, but maybe tell us a little bit more what you mean by that and what are the signs you're seeing?
Yeah, I think the gap between what the reality of the technology is capable of doing and is being deployed by businesses to do versus what is said online to gain attention is becoming clearer and clearer. It's been clear to people like me who have been building machine learning backed products, right? Before AI, before we had
Right.
the AI revolution and the transformer, the paper attention is all you need in 2017. We just had machine learning. And this isn't even the first time we've had AI as a
Right.
disruptive force within the market. We could maybe talk about Lisp machines and knowledge workers and how that all kind of
Right.
burnt to the ground previously, right? Long before my time. But people are noticing this gap when you have people like Sam Altman and Dario Modi saying things like, hey, there isn't going to be any jobs in 2 years. And you're seeing people look at the financing of these AI companies and saying, is this just like crazy circular financing? These deals don't make any sense. And then you have reports around from MIT and Rand Corporation that are showing like an 80 to 90% failure ratio in the pilot programs that big corporations are running with AI. And I think some people are noticing this. Now, the issue with the disillusionment cycle, which I think nearly all technologies go through, is that people get too disillusioned. The pendulum swings too far in the other direction and they say, well, actually, this didn't do what you said it was going to do in the most hyper optimistic scenarios. So therefore, it will do nothing. And that's equally as wrong as saying all jobs are gone in the next 2 years. Both of those are wrong. And me and my team talk about this red pill, blue pill dichotomy that we're asked to
Right.
kind of take. And actually, we're like, no, it's the purple pill. It's the middle way that is a much
Right.
more sane way. It is both. It is going to be harder and take longer to disrupt everything than most people are predicting, but it will disrupt on a more deeper and fundamental level than even the most optimistic people are saying over the long run. And it's very hard to predict that trend while you're in it.
Yeah, I think the world is kind of full of these false dichotomies where it's either this or that. I think you're right. That purple pill, I love that analogy. Being a fan of the Matrix, that kind of hits home. But I'm curious, knowing that it is not really delivering as promised, but it is somewhere in the middle. Like, what is it that we really want to get out of it? Like we were talking before, you've integrated it into your process, your minimum viable launch process, and things like that. Maybe tell us a little bit about how you're using AI in your process, and maybe let's start talking about how leaders can start effectively using AI, as we said in the intro, for ROI and things that are more human.
Yeah, and I think this is the key thing, is our view is that AI is an accelerant for the experts, not a replacement for the experts. and it functions in a very particular way, at least in the near term, right? Longer term, when we talk about artificial general intelligence, that is a very different kettle of fish. That's a different ball game. That isn't the technology we have today, but that's what most of the hype focuses around, pretending if we have this. It is an accelerant for the expert, and it is an accelerant in a very particular way. There is a mountain, a never-ending pile of work that never gets done because it refreshes naturally every single day. That stops you being a face to your customer. And what we say is the true power and promise of AI isn't replacing humans. It is enabling businesses to stop treating their customers as faceless masses. It is enabling businesses to become high tech, high touch. And you used to have this choice to make as a business. Are we going to remain small and high price so that we can be, bespoke, boutique, the white glove service? Or are we going to go for scalability? Things get templated, standardized, and we treat kind of everyone the same. And, it's not as good, but we get some scale out of it. And I think AI actually breaks that decision. So the way that we apply this with businesses of all sorts is we look at finding one very particular trade in each of these businesses. We want to analyze what makes their best people most impactful. So we usually go and interview their best people. And we say, like, when you are having a day where you, at the end of it, you hang your coat up at the end of the day and you say, I have moved the needle significantly for the organization, or I have massively produced value for our customers. And we analyze, what are you doing? And interestingly, that's usually things around consultancy, clarity, spending time with them, giving them reassurance, your customers reassurance, letting them know the next steps. And then we say, what's the direct opposite of that? Well, what most often gets in that the way of doing that, and we make them list that out. And it's like, oh, I have to update the CRM or ClickUp. I have to send this email. I have to search through 1,000 pages of documents to try and find this information for them. Okay, the amazing thing about this is AI absolutely sucks at really human personal interactions because they're too messy, they're too long form, it's expensive, and it's too chaotic. What it really excels at is repetitive tasks that are highly rule-based, that are highly templated, and we can make the trade. We can build not the God model to replace your entire department, but we build the AI agent that updates the CRM or can scan the 1,000 pages of documents so that your team doesn't need to do that, so they can go and produce more value for your customers. And we have one very specific belief in our business, which is an entrepreneur or business only gets paid a percentage of the value it generates. If you're not earning enough at the end of the year, you need to generate more value in the world. AI gives you the ability to do that.
No, I like that. And I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I think it does, to maybe nod to some of the fears, it does impact jobs, as in, like what you're saying is scale now becomes not a matter of hiring more and templatizing more. It becomes an issue of automation in the back end. I mean, as an entrepreneur myself, I can say using AI to do a lot of different things has made it to where typically where I would have had to hire 2 or 3 people at least part-time, I don't have to do that anymore. So, I mean, there's definitely an impact, but there's also that value in that higher human touch. It gives me time to have conversations like these.
And I think the difficulty is it's difficult to see the new industries and the new opportunities that it is simultaneously generating at the same time that it is disrupting and taking away. But in all instances of humanity inventing a technology, it has grown the overall pie, not kept it exactly the same, and redistributed it. And we're asked to believe in the world of AI that this isn't going to produce any gain. It is just going to reallocate the current GDP of the world. But that's not what I see, because I work with businesses every day that are doing new things with AI. Yes, okay, maybe they wouldn't have done them in the past because it would have required hiring someone to support it, and maybe the unit economics didn't really work out. But now it does work out and it produces new value, and then they can bring people in to run that system. And so it's not that there's less jobs, it's that the jobs are different. And it's not that, it's like when Photoshop was created, right? I was an illustrator by trade. That's what I did at university. When Photoshop, and I wasn't at university when Photoshop was invented. It was a little bit before then, but we used to have people like doing airbrushes and these like crazy illustrations, right? And they were expensive, and the illustrators were incredibly good. like incredible work. And when Photoshop came around, the conversation was, now you can just do this all with a computer. The barrier to entry lowers. There's going to be no jobs, there's no work. But actually what happened is many more companies could afford to deploy illustrations and that kind of graphical artwork into their businesses. And we had a massive explosion of the need for graphic designers and illustrators, not a contraction. And I think the same is going to play out with large language models generally, is that there's going to be a massive explosion in the need for humans, just not for the same kind of work that humans have always done before.
No, and I think it's going to be fascinating to watch play out. And I think that, as much as there is benefit, there's going to be some pain. But I'm curious, like knowing that this is coming, what does that healthy human AI collaboration actually look like in practice? Like where should leaders be looking? How should they be integrating AI into decision making? How do they get that balance?
Now, this is an interesting one. I have some controversial takes around AI and decision making.
We love
I don't
controversial.
think you want an AI anywhere near any decision-making process in your business whatsoever, because AI lacks consistency. It also lacks common sense. I have a hilarious story where I ruined a dinner at my brother's wedding for 21 people. I've got a large family, and I was sat by a pool in Portugal, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to offer to cook for everyone when I fly back in. I made GPT create me the menu. And then I made GPT send that menu and the ingredients to my sister to add to the shopping list. I didn't cross-check it at all. And I got there and my family said, when are you baking this bread? I was like, what are you talking about? I'm baking bread. There's like, you've ordered flour, yeast, salt, and all that. I was like, GPT, why didn't you? I obviously don't want to do that right now. Okay, so it's lacking common sense, but I think there's a different trap with this, and I think it's going to cause an awful lot of harm in the world. It is ultimately, at least the ways the models that most people use have been trained, is ultimately congruent to your request. Meaning when we ask it to do something, it does it. Because when you ask GPT, Gemini, or Claude to say, hey, write me a sales email, write me the copy for the landing page, we don't want those models to turn around and say, hey, JL, you know what? Don't really feel like it today.
Right.
So, we don't really feel like this today. I think there is a bubbling issue. If we refer back to that example of, outsourcing too much of my thinking for something trivial, thankfully, but too much of my thinking to AI to design a menu and order those ingredients, I became lazy. I started to use AI for an awful lot in my life, in my business, and I started to notice kind of a degradation of my own thinking, my own strategy, but also just sometimes when you were inspecting the outputs from these AIs, it's not great. So AI is ultimately congruent because it's got to adhere to your request when you ask it to write the sales email, to create the landing page copy. You'd cancel your subscription pretty quickly if it said no. And that's why, although it's a controversial take, that's why I advise people I work with not to use AI in an advisory capacity in the way that most people do, because it's not necessarily giving you the right answer. It's not necessarily thinking through a problem and giving you a deeply thought through answer. What it's doing is giving you an answer that looks statistically correct, which is magic. It does amazing things. But for certain applications, that's not really what you want. And if you think about the best mentors, coaches, and advisors you've had in your life, they all exhibit one trait that AI does not. They are not congruent. They call you out. They tell you where you are not meeting the standards, where your thinking is bad, where you're feeling sorry for yourself and you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? So use AI, and you can use AI as a consultative advisor in a specific way where you start to understand this statistical nature, and you don't say things like, is this a good idea? Well, it's like user research, right? You say, would you buy this product? Yes. And then you build it and you give it to someone and you say, right, would you buy it now? And they say, oh, I meant for people like me. I didn't mean me personally, right? And you've led them on. So you've got to ask great open questions, and you've got to understand that it's going to try and agree with you. And so, because it's congruent. So Do an analysis of these two ideas, which one is stronger, is a better question to ask AI than is this a good idea. Unfortunately, though, for us humans, we are efficiency machines, right? Look around your house, the light, the fridge, the dishwasher, the washing machine, the car. These are inventions of us going, it's kind of a lot of effort to go out into the woods and hunt the deer and skin it and kill it. Like, let's, go on
Yeah.
this long journey of making life just a little easier and nicer. And so humans really struggle, I think. I know I certainly do. The vibe coding example comes up where I start with great intentions of using AI in a really high quality way as an advisor or a, co-pilot. And over time, I start outsourcing more and more and more of the thinking and the doing to the AI. And we enter the death spiral because it
Yeah.
loses the context, it loses the meaning. And the technology just isn't there right now to have a world-class advisor in your pocket. It's not really doing that. So I think this is an interesting point that business owners should watch out for.
Yeah.
How much of your thinking are you outsourcing to AI? Outsource much more of your doing. Retain the thinking. Retain your face time with your clients. And I think that's the great human AI symbiosis is,
Yeah.
and robotics has known this truth for a long time. It's called Moravec's paradox, if anyone's interested in looking at it. Computers are incredibly good at things that humans are incredibly bad at. Translation,
Right.
calculation, giant pattern spotting across huge data sets. And the issue is humans personify that and look at that and say, well, if it can do those things that I struggle with, doing calculus, it must be able to do the things that I find really easy. But humans
Right.
completely discount our incredible abilities to encounter unique situations that we don't have rules for, to act with common sense, to be non-congruent. Like this is hard stuff that humans do.
Right.
And I think we got to be aware of that, even with all of the hype around AI right now.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think we're starting to kind of look into the future of AI. And I know you've talked about being 3 to 6 months ahead of mainstream in the AI discourse. So maybe let's take it a little bit further and let's talk about what are you seeing that leaders probably aren't yet prepared for?
I think it is the changing of their customers' expectations. I think this is the thing that most people aren't prepared for. They are caught in this moment of fear and excitement. AI has done this magic thing that it's convinced the senior leadership teams of a lot of businesses that nearly anything is possible. And
Right.
sometimes I get requests and they say, is this possible? And I say, yes, you just needed a Python script. You could have done this 20 years ago. Why have you been employing someone to do this? So there's these kind of projects that start as AI that you just transfer to a normal piece of software because it's a better tool for it, right? Which is incredible. So they have this kind of yes mindset. And it's maybe the first time in a long time that they've gone to the technical people in their lives. And when they've pitched an idea, the answer hasn't been, oh, it's going to be difficult and expensive. It's, yeah, we can do that, right? So there's this momentum and they're trapped within this fear because they think they're going to be disrupted. And if they don't do something, they're behind. And actually, I think having worked with a lot of businesses, most businesses are trapped in this weird copy-paste world of putting information in and out of GPT. They don't have agents yet that do things in their business. But that's where the danger lies, is that the smart businesses have been running small, fast, cheap AI experiments. They haven't been betting the house on it, right? They've been running small experiments, building capacity. And as they deploy these services, there's this moment, I was on a call with JP Morgan and some of their analysts looking at some of the research they had around AI. And they had this amazing chart of this kind of X curve. And if you've ever seen like Tony C work in the world of disruption, he loves X curves of these moments where technology kind of flips the switch. And there's an X curve that's kind of going on of these pilot programs of companies that have only piloted AI versus companies that have deployed AI. In the next year is going to cross. There's going to be more companies that have deployed AI in the enterprise environments than those who have just only piloted it. And that is going to do something to your customers' expectations. That's what businesses aren't prepared for. Everyone is highly individualized in the world right now. Think of your YouTube home screen. It is as unique as, it's an incredibly unique mix of eclectic interests. If you are a Spotify user, and you are anything like my family, we love a good party, right? And we'll put the music on when we're doing that. We have to go back to like the 90s and the 80s to find common ground in our music choices, because we've gone in some weird niches. And actually now there's some like a lot of kind of AI music flooding into Spotify, right? So we've become highly individualized humans with really niche tastes from our streaming platforms, from our algorithmic feeds that kind of get us to go down these very niche interests. But business hasn't really been able to compete with that yet. It hasn't been able to do individualized marketing. It hasn't been able to do individualized sales and product delivery. It's been smart market spray and pray. But some businesses are cracking this nut. And we do a presentation for businesses that we work with, and we look at history. And we go back to the agricultural age, and we look at who the powerful people were, the winners were of that economy. And we look at the transformation between the industrial era type companies versus the information age companies. And I have this picture of an industrial age accountant in this dusty hall with an abacus, a pen and ink, doing manual entry bookkeeping, versus the accountant of the information age with the wondrous product that is Microsoft Excel, cloud computing, an internet connection, international travel, like these things, right? And I asked the question, how do these two businesses compete? How does the industrial age business compete with the information age business? How does that accountant have a better service and product? And the answer is they cannot. They don't exist on the same plane of productivity, because the calculations the information age accountant can do in seconds would take him all day, all week even. And you can't compete. And it's the same with AI as we move into what we call the intelligence era businesses. Those that are able to treat their customers in highly personalized, highly individualized ways are going to be magnetic to those customers. They are going to get more conversational, qualitative data out their customers than ever before. Their marketing is going to become hyper advanced and hyper personalized. And you cannot compete if you don't move with them. And I don't think a lot of businesses have clocked this. It's not about unemploying hundreds of people in your departments. It's about becoming high tech, high touch, and being able to treat everyone in your entire pipeline from lead to delivery as an individual.
I love that. I think that's great. Lee, I know we could keep going on this. We do have to wrap up. If our listeners need some support with AI integration, any of that, what's the best way for them to get into contact with you?
We love working with a whole range of industries, service-based, product-based. And we run a monthly masterclass which teaches you how to analyze your business, find your highest ROI AI experiment, so you can start what we call the AI flywheel and become your industry's next big disruptor. We run that once a month. It's completely free online. And so JL, maybe I'll give you the link for the show notes. We can put that in there, and I'd love to see some of the listeners in there and give them some examples of how they can innovate with AI in their business. Not fluff, but practical advice.
I love that. I love that. Lee, thank you so much for your time today. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I know it's getting late there in Turkey, so we'll wrap this up. For everyone else who's listened all the way to the end, as I always say, while you're down there leaving that 5-star review, let us know what the challenges are you see with AI. Where does it kind of fall short for you? It's been so hyped. It would be good to hear some of the opposite side of the story from the people in the trenches. So tell us what you think. And if you know anyone who could benefit from Lee's perspective on AI, or how to integrate AI into business decision-making, any of that, share this episode, introduce them to Lee, share the wealth. Lee, thank you again so much. This has been fantastic. For everyone else, we'll see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.